By the way, sorry to France for all of our pronunciations today.
Welcome to SinCast, presented by Cinemasins.
This episode of SinCast is brought to you by Mubi, a curated online cinema streaming exceptional films from around the globe. Each day, Mubi introduces a new gem, and you have 1 month to watch it. From cult classics to acclaimed masterpieces, every film is hand-selected by experts. Try Mubi free for 30 days at mubi.com/cinemasins. That's mubi.com/cinemasins for your extended free trial. All right, everybody, welcome to the SinCast. This is Chris Atkinson from Cinemasins, joined as always by the voice of Cinemasins, Jeremy Scott.
Hello and hello.
Yes.
That's double hello.
Yeah.
And from Music Video Sins, Barrett Scher.
Hello, hello, hello.
Oh, you bastard.
That's right.
And,
what up to you?
We're sort of back to our old ways after that best of 2017. You like that?
Back to our old ways.
Our old ways.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
I'm as mad as hell!
You've never seen me very upset.
Lord Jesus! Lord Jesus!
So, does anybody want to start us off on a rant? Actually, I'm going to start us off on a rant because I think that you two are going to come up with stuff that's like way better, and I'd rather just go ahead and do mine. I don't know how many people see these Coca-Cola ads where they get some fresh filmmakers from USC or UCLA or whatever to shoot this Coca-Cola ad, basically what it is. But it's on front of almost every movie. I don't know if it's just Regal or if it's AMC as well.
I think I've seen them at both.
And so there was one that was playing a few months ago where it's like a robot on a standee and goes in and enjoys a drink and a popcorn, and everybody's like sitting there going, yep, well, that's just your everyday robot sitting there enjoying the show. He was at the standee and not life. He had no life before, but now he's in here. And yeah, there are always these magical, whimsical types of things. The one that's playing now.
Yeah. I know.
His face is so awesome. I can't wait.
Is it possible? Is it possible not to stand something more than this fucking thing? I don't mean to like go out and demean the people who shot it and did it. All that. They have a certain amount of limitations,
sure,
and I understand that. They always have this preamble though, like, hey, we're blah 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 from USC and UCLA, here's our film.
Yeah.
And I'm like, first off, don't call it a film, asshole. It's not a film, it's a Coca-Cola ad. They gave you money and they said, shoot something. We don't give a fuck as long as it's Coca-Cola in it. And the one that they're playing now is like the typical bullshit where somebody goes and sits down in a movie, and the guy in the movie is aware of the people in the audience, and like so it's like this guy's like sitting there like, oh no, it's I gotta hit the keys on the keyboard and save the world and everything, and he like goes over and steals this guy's Coke in the front row and drinks it and puts it back or whatever, and then there's like this whole like he saves the world, and then he gives the dude in the front row like this sort of like I want to fuck you look.
He does.
It looks like he's like, so you and me, right? We're in this thing together forever. And but apparently the dude in the front row instinctively knows, oh, he wants my popcorn.
Right.
And I'm like, I would not have known that. I would not have. I would have been like, whoa, what are you looking at?
We went to a different place here.
Yeah, exactly. And and there's like that whole like, oh, whimsical, like, okay, I guess I'll give you the popcorn. And like, okay, so where are we at on this, all right?
What is the point?
Yeah, exactly.
Why can't you, I mean, I think Coke is doing it under the guise of like giving young filmmakers a shot. Mm-hmm. But like you said, the limitations on these things make it an ad, and it's usually 30 seconds, maybe 60. Mm-hmm. There was that one, like the least harmful one is the most annoying to me, and it's the couple on the date where the boy thinks the girl is lusting after the popcorn kid, but she's just lusting after the Coke.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as she gets the Coke, she starts kind of flirting with him again, and I don't even understand what just went down.
No.
Yeah.
But I would rather see a regular Coke commercial. Fuck, I would rather see a Coke logo on screen for 2 straight minutes.
Yeah.
Than watch one of these things and have it be called a film.
Yeah.
And I don't even know, again, I don't want to demean the filmmakers. If I was at USC or wherever the fuck they're finding these people, and I got a chance and I made an ad for Coke and it was going to run in thousands of theaters, I would be geeked. I would be telling my parents, hey, that's my work. This is my shot. My face is on screen. But fuck this shit.
Yeah, it's a waste of time. That's the thing. It's just such a waste of time when I'm going to see a movie that this is a glorified Coke ad, and they've got these young filmmakers or whatever. I've been seeing these for years, by the way.
Yeah.
These aren't new. These have been around probably since I was in my first movie theater. I can't remember them all, but I know I've seen like a ton of these. And maybe they had it where they were doing it for a while, then they stopped, and then they came back. Whatever, but ultimately they just take the momentum of you watching a movie out of you. Like there's just
sometimes
something
I'll put
about
it after
it.
the trailers.
Yeah,
Where like
exactly.
you're ready, you make that transition mentally from the trailers, where you almost forget what movie that you're here to see because you're kind of just attending to that, and then when that goes off, the lights get a little dimmer. You're like, okay, I'm ready to watch Call Me by Your Name. There's a goddamn Coke ad right in front of it.
Yeah, and I understand. Like if you showed this to your friends and family, they'd be like, "Oh, that's cute," blah blah blah. But like for millions of people ready to watch, all these watch their movie and everything, it just
Well, and let's be honest. What producer out there is going to go, you made one of those little Coke films?
Wow.
I'll hire you.
Right.
Look, that's not going to be good on your resume.
In fact, I mean, I'm sure that if we went back and were able to look at the history of Coca-Cola films that have happened before movies and everything, there might be somebody who like, oh, he actually turned into something or whatever. But most of them, I don't think we've ever heard of from them
Steven
again.
Soderbergh got his big
Right.
break
Yeah,
at the
exactly.
commercial.
Yeah. This 1986 feature, So that's my rant. You guys go on your better rants.
No, that's a great rant, I think, actually. I'm not very proud of my rants either. One of them I wanted to rant about was MoviePass. We talked about that last week with Dicer, and I kind of gave my opinion on MoviePass. It's not sustainable. But my wife has a friend who's using it and keeps trying to talk her into signing up for it. I'm like, sign up for it if you want, but in 6-12 months, it's not going to work.
Yeah, and you're on the hook, too, on that service, right?
Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to rant. I'm going to try and deconstruct the jump scare for a moment.
Okay.
Because there's more than one thing about a jump scare that's annoying. It's annoying that you're using a crutch, but it's even more annoying how tricky they get with this shit. Because I'm flipping channels yesterday, the day before, and like I usually do, if I see a title on one of the movie channels that I have not ever heard of, I'll go look at the description, see who's in it, when was it made, what's it about. So I see this movie called Totem. It's a fairly recent horror movie. I think it was 2016 when it came out. I don't know anybody in it, never heard about it. Something about a ghost in a house with a necklace.
That totem pole.
And so
he'll be here forever.
I have to watch a little bit before I can tell if it's like what I like a Wrong Turn sequel, or if it's what I don't like The Exorcist. I ended up watching all this movie. It's not very good. I'm not recommending it. But there's a teenage girl who's kind of the center of this story. And at one point she goes downstairs because she hears a noise. She's creeping into the living room, and a cat runs by. Now, first of all, cat is the very laziest jump scare mechanism you can choose in the state. That's been done 50 million times.
Yep.
But accompanying this cat running across the floor in front of her was a noise that sounded like someone dropped a piano.
That's exactly how a cat sounds.
To accompany, like, it's almost like they abandon all audio logic, and now they're just using the audio to scare you. And the visual doesn't even have to match the audio as long as you've been frightened. As long as, like, she didn't even have to see anything. She could have just walked into the living room and you could have dropped the piano and I would have jumped. Right? I didn't even need to see the cat.
Yeah.
Because the sound is startling. That's a cheat.
Yeah.
You fucking cheaters.
Yeah. Well, and remember, everything comes back to Friday the 13th Part 2.
As it should.
They do every cliche possible within the first 10 minutes.
They do. I know that you talked about the that perspective where the killer is supposedly out there and then they're not really. So what's the point and all that? In Friday the 13th Part 2, there's that part where the girl from the first movie, the survivor girl from the first movie, is walking around this house, and she goes in the kitchen, and this cat comes through an open window. Yeah. You just think about the parabolic jump that he would have to do from outside. It's like and what's the point even? Why is the cat so frightened? Is Jason out there? Even if Jason was out there, would he jump like that through an open and why do you have an open window? Now we're sending this movie all over again. But it's that, most of the time, a lot of the thing that you're getting at is that they don't make sense. They don't make sense that, cats would act that way or whatever. And you're right, it is lazy. It's just one of those things. But yeah, most of the time those cats get scared type of things. They're running away and not meowing or anything. They're just
right.
I guess filmmakers are relying on that because even the best of them, I recently saw Mother. Mm-hmm. And Darren Aronofsky puts jump scares in that. There'll be this long bit of silence and she'll turn around and it's Ed Harris's face or something like that, or Javier Bardem. And again, there should be no noise accompanying this at all.
Right.
There's no score playing. It's just silence and then and it just doesn't make any sense. In It, I mentioned on the last podcast about there's that shot of the lady in the background that is staring and smiling at him. That is the creepiest thing in that movie. Mm-hmm. Not all the fucking jump scares that happen over and over and over again in an otherwise really, really good movie. You don't need it. You don't need the emphasis on the sound. You don't need the sudden cutaway or anything like that. Right. You can get creep, and it's more effective if you put it more subtly in there.
I'm not even saying you can't use audio or score to accentuate a scary moment, because I think even Spielberg does that in Jaws when he finds that dead body underwater. Mm-hmm. And I think there's kind of an orchestra hit there.
Yeah.
And The Dark Knight has one of the most excusable jump scares ever because it doesn't cheat by having this creepy, ominous feeling right before it. It's just a meeting between the mayor and the DA, and the mayor walks over towards a window and sudden body hits the window.
And that's the sound. The noise is the body hitting. It's not
there is score there too. We do get kind of a little of a hit there, but that fucks me up every time because I always forget it's coming because the movie's not trying to telegraph a scary moment is coming. It's just out of left field.
And that's where it works, right? Where they don't set it up. Yeah. They don't set the thing up and it just happens, and that's a good jump scare. And I felt like I think we took a cent off in The Ring for the Brian Cox sort of jump scare that happens in that, because while you're kind of expecting something to happen, it's not like anything that seems imminent. Mm-hmm. And she's just sitting there watching that tape, and then just it's just a casual edit, and you see him in the background, and everything. It's really scary. Sinister has one of those too, where it has a lot of jump scares, but Sinister has that one. Keep in mind, he's watching 8mm film that has no sound on it. So one of the biggest jump scares in the entire movie is when he sees the one with the families in the house, and then then they're all tied up in the yard, and there's a lawnmower. And so actually you don't know that they're out there. You just see the lawnmowers just going across the grass. Yeah. And then as it goes up on one of the people tied up on the lawn, you can hear all sorts of shit that you would never hear, or at least they put the musical score, to sort of suggest a lawnmower sound or something like that, where it's it's definitely not there. I'd almost wager that it'd be scarier without the noise, because if you're just sitting, it's just nothing there, and then suddenly there's it's mowing somebody's face, then
yeah, I agree.
All right, well, give us your rant.
All right. So I was going to talk about Star Wars, and at some point we need to talk about Star Wars.
We do, because there's too many.
We need to talk about
But something that was bothering me before I saw the movie, during the movie, and still bothering me after I saw the movie is Call Me By Your Name. The fact that we're still, even in this day and age, we're still not talking about the fact that this kid is 17 years old. Now, the mitigating factors, age of consent is different in Europe. He's presented as being a mature 17-year-old some of the way in the movie. Mm-hmm. And in the book, the Armie Hammer character is supposed to be 24. Now, in the movie, they don't state his age. Mm-hmm. Armie Hammer's 31 years old. The way that Timothée Chalamet plays this character is at times very childlike. And it's bothersome to me. It's still bothersome to me. And I thought about it in a couple of different ways. Switch either of these characters to a woman or a girl. What would we be saying about this, especially in this day and age? I know 17 and 18 aren't all that different, but again, the way that they present this guy, when it's a silly example, but I'll use it here. When he fucks that peach, he falls apart. When Armie Hammer comes in and is like, "What did you do?"
I'm never going to be able to watch this movie.
But he turns into like this blithering mess. Mm-hmm. He's like, I'm fucked up because he's full of all these hormones and all this stuff where you legitimately say, I'm going to fuck this peach. Like that to me is almost to where he's not mature enough to be able to handle something like this. And there's a creep factor to this that I don't think has been addressed in any of the reviews. I've read millions of reviews of this movie trying to see if there's any sort of, at least like pump the brakes a little bit and let's talk about this. The movie's great. It's got some great content, got some great acting performances, but there's a little something here.
How old is Mariel Hemingway in Manhattan?
She is 15, I believe.
Oh, so
yeah,
okay.
Jesus.
She might be 17.
I think she's a little older.
She might
be
17 because she's going off to like musical high school at the end.
Yeah, that's another movie that maybe it doesn't. I think it does get a pass though. A lot of times, I don't know. There must be an acceptable threshold for some people as far as age is concerned. Like 17 is still there. Like 17 still like the age where you can go see R-rated movies legally.
She was 16. Her character, I think, was around the same age.
Okay, so I mean, I think over the years, and because Woody Allen has so much controversy around his name at this point, people do go back and look at stuff like Manhattan and say that's creepy.
Yep.
But back in 1978, 79, I don't know if people were really calling attention to that. And it's sort of nobody really talks about that either. I don't know. Is there a certain age where like people kind of go, yeah, underage, but
in this movie, and again, he could be a mature 17-year-old, and I guess relative to his peers, he kind of is, but he's a virgin in this movie, I believe. I know that the girl he gets with is a virgin at the time. So it's like,
is the peach he fucks a virgin?
Yes, definitely virginal. He pushes the pit out. But yeah, no, the way that he plays this character is not as mature as what you would say, like, I don't know. I don't know an example of like a super mature 17-year-old. Well, all I'm saying is that if I were 17, I didn't have my shit together at 17.
I think a lot of this is, I mean, my wife would have a lot to say about this because she studied cultural anthropology. And I think a lot of this is just the culture that we live in. All three of us grew up in fairly conservative middle American, 80s homes where, we think 17 is a little too immature for a relationship with a 24-year-old. But 200 years ago, nobody in America did because they would marry their daughters off at 12.
Yeah.
And that would never be done today because of where we are as a culture. But even, see, I think age of consent is just, it's just murky. You have to pick an age. You have to. But where you put that number is completely arbitrary to me because, like you said, there are kids in jail who were 19 and had sex with a 16-year-old. That doesn't seem right. But at some point, you have to draw a line.
Yeah.
We have to pick where that line is. Now, hundreds of years ago, we had that line in a different place. Today, we have it here. But in Europe, It's in different places.
I guess so, but the counterpoint to what I said about how Timothée Chalamet plays is that Armie Hammer is playing a self-realized, mature man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's at the point where he's confident enough to like talk smack to the professor and stuff like that, and seduce this child essentially. Even though he's right on that line, and so the way that these roles are played, I think it's so diametrically opposed that it's uncomfortable.
Is
at
the
times.
author American or European?
I don't know.
If an American author wrote this story,
Mhm.
they made that person 17 on purpose because they wanted to address that ickiness.
There's also the parental consent issue in this movie too. Is that the parents seem to be okay with it, which that is something that I don't know. I'm not like Michael Bay and know all the statutory laws like he does, but like that's something that I've heard so many, like, because I knew girls when they were 16 and 17 who said the oldest boyfriend they've ever had is like 27 and 28.
Yeah.
So this happens.
Yeah.
You know. So I mean, and it's always been, well, if the parents say it's okay, then there's not much there. As far and those parents are pretty permissive in Call Me by Your Name. So you have that issue too, and I understand that we look at this and go, whoa, that's kind of like that's pushing it, and everything. But there's also that factor.
There is, and I'm what I think though is that if the younger character in this book was played by a girl, I think we would be having a lot more to say.
It'll be a little bit different
than this.
Yeah.
And or if the Elio character was being seduced by an older woman, probably would have a little something to say about that too.
But it's, I mean, we talked about stuff like Lolita in the past and all that. I mean, these are controversial, but for the most part, hey, this is kind of stuff that happens, and this is the story, and
Yeah.
There you go.
I don't know. It's just one of those things. My wife actually has a big problem with it too, and she's not going to see the movie because of it. That's a disqualifier for her, and I understand that. Not saying it's not a great movie. It is a really, really good movie. That's just a part that still sticks with me. Yeah. And James Ivory wrote it. He is American.
He wrote the screenplay.
Didn't he write the book?
Nope.
No, Nicholas Sparks wrote the book.
Oh, yeah. It's Andre Aciman.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so if the author's European, then
he's from Italy, yeah.
So then maybe there's not an intention there by making because maybe in Italy, 17 is the age of consent. Nobody blinks twice at it.
Right.
But I think part of your reaction is our Americanness. Mm-hmm. And, the rest of the world is a little more free with sex than we are.
I'm cool with free sex, man.
That is very true.
I am A-okay with free sex. I was watching people humping all fucking day long yesterday. And it was for work.
Yes, it was. That's what kind of job we have here.
I swear, when I first bought the first 50 Shades movie for us to cine it, I had 50 Shades and some other blockbuster, and I was like, it's for work.
That's the
cashier.
Man, that's the thing about buying stuff at Best Buy or any place that you go, and you buy, like, I go in and buy just about everything. And so, like, every once in a while, somebody has to make a comment, and you're like,
yeah.
Like I had to buy all the Transformers before we did the Transformers, and it was, I think it was at Walmart, and I put all these Transformers down on the counter, and the guy was like, "Oh man, those last couple were really good, weren't they?" And I was like, "Yeah."
Was he being sarcastic?
No.
Oh my god,
he was not. I was kind of like a guy in Office Space who's like, I kind of like them all, with the Michael Bolton song.
Yeah.
And then once I went in and bought Baywatch one day, and this one guy, and Best Buy always has that one guy who they hire to like check your bag and the receipt and all that, and he's like, "Man, that Baywatch wasn't very good." Looking at me, I was like, "Yeah, I buy everything."
He's judging you.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well,
pretty much judging me.
He's judging you after you've made your purchase.
Yeah, exactly.
Seriously, you really fucked up, man.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I don't know what to say. Well, the other thing that's weird is I buy a lot of stuff I've not seen. So people are like, "Oh, I heard this is good," and I'm like, I haven't seen it. And I'm sure in their head they're like, "Why are you buying?"
Yeah, yeah. Well, what's funny is we both worked with assistant manager at Hollywood who, this was 20 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
who would buy everything.
Mm-hmm.
Every Tuesday when new DVDs came out, he would go, whether he'd seen it or not, he was obsessed with buying everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that was well before YouTube and Cinemasins, and like we have at least a decent excuse.
Yeah.
But he did not. It always troubled me because he would even sometimes take a break at work and go down to Media Play and come back and show me all these Blu-rays. I'm like, why the fuck did you buy the wedding planner? Like, why would you? Why
Gotta
do you
flesh
need
out his
to
W's.
own that?
Well, part of it too is also that story that Kevin Smith told when we were out there in L.A. and watching that show,
Yeah.
the Improv that he does, and he was talking about that guy who was the big champion of mall rats and everything,
Yeah.
who had just recently died. And I'm sorry, I can't remember the name right now, but he said that he would hang out with that guy and he would go in and this guy would just clean out all the laser discs in this one store and everything. And he goes, why would you buy all this? And he's like, hey man, this industry's given me a lot, and I'm sort of giving back to the industry. And now that's sort of way I feel about it is I'm going and I'm buying even stuff that I know for a fact we're never going to send.
Yeah.
I buy it just to have it there because it might be a movie that I want to see sometime. Maybe we will send it someday. Who knows? But
There's a lot of wrapped copies in
Yes,
Chris's
there is.
collection.
Like
there is.
What's Eating Gilbert Grape?
oh yeah, What's Eating Gilbert Grape? You know what? Sorry, Frank, I don't have that one.
How did that become a thing, by the way?
I don't know, but he clearly knows it's never going to happen, and he's just having his fun.
do a bonus video.
Well, maybe they'll make a sequel to it.
Leo.
Oh my God. That would be. I'm not saying it.
Okay, you want to get to some news?
Let's get to some news.
News on the mark.
I'll actually throw one out there because it was originally going to be my rant. Now there's another Star Wars trilogy. Not the trilogy that has not yet started. There's another story.
Not the one we're in the middle of.
Not the solo story, not the other stuff, the prequel stuff.
Not the Obi-Wan movie.
It's a whole new thing with David Benioff and D.B. Weiss from Game of Thrones. They're writing a whole different thing that takes place in the Star
And
Wars
from
universe.
what I understand, not directing it.
Right.
More like show running it in terms of like overseeing the story. But I don't even think they direct a lot of Game of Thrones episodes.
Yeah,
They direct a decent amount. Like
Okay.
it's not. Yeah, I mean they have a team like any TV show does, where you have your usual star directors that are in there that do a lot, but they are a part of that. It's not like a lot,
Okay.
but they do a lot
All
of
right.
directing.
Well, this should be good news because I love Star Wars and I love Game of Thrones and I love the writing for these guys. But I think with Solo coming out, with the new trilogy wrapping up in a couple years, with the new Rian Johnson trilogy that's coming out, I think we may be getting
A live action TV show.
an oversaturation.
Well, yes,
point.
we are, and that's why I tweeted what I did about how many Star Wars movies in development now? Too many.
Yeah.
I think we're already there. Now I didn't enjoy Last Jedi as much as you guys. I still enjoyed it, but I have like, you can barely see the amount of hype I feel for the next one.
For the next episode
9.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Mhm.
I don't really care. I'll see it,
Mhm.
but unlike The Force Awakens, where I was geeked out and rented out a whole goddamn theater and invited all my friends, and I had to take a Xanax, I was so anxious to watch that movie. I had none of that with Last Jedi. There was none of that anticipation, and the experience I had there, it's gonna feel the same. And now the problem is, from what I understand, Rian Johnson's going to go far off into the other end of the galaxy and deal with characters we've never heard of.
Mhm. Which I can get down with. That's fine.
I suppose maybe the problem with the current trilogy is that it is too tied to the past and not allowed to be free and new enough. But I mean, oversaturation is not a subjective thing, right?
Right.
There are studies out there. We watched it happen with movie theaters when they built too many, huge 30-screen theaters, and eventually it caught up to them, and lots of theaters went under. Lots of them got bought. Regal got bought. And so I don't like the response to me saying it's oversaturation being, no, it isn't. You simply want more Star Wars than I do.
Right.
And you're not burnt out yet. But again, I think it's going to happen with Marvel too. We basically get 3 Marvel movies a year at this point. I could give a rat's ass what happens in Infinity War. I could care less. Now, it may be badass. I may watch it and go, holy shit, it's the best thing ever. I may watch Black Panther and go, Jesus, I felt something. Yeah. But in everything I've seen, 18 films, MCU films? It's hard for me to get it up anymore because you're throwing so many at me. And the same is going to happen with Star Wars. I'm also concerned because the last few seasons of Game of Thrones have shown that these guys are better at moments than they are logic. And they've completely thrown time and travel out the window in the last 2 seasons of Game of Thrones just to put the pieces on the board where they need them for the big moments. And I hope they don't play fast and loose like that.
I think it'll be
Star
a
Wars.
completely different situation, though, because Game of Thrones, they're trying to wrap it up. That's
true.
The thing about that is that they've basically said, well, this is how many seasons we have, and we got to get all this story done. I don't understand that, by the way. Why couldn't they have just extended it more and had 10 seasons and just said, and
they're already off script.
Yeah. So I never understood that, but, I do also like the idea that they're going to be running it more sort of like how Lucas did and everything. A lot of people, put a lot of stock in who's directing these movies. And, you don't really – it takes me some thought every time to realize that Irvin Kershner did Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
And it took me – and it takes even more thought to go, Richard Marquand. Oh, yeah, Richard Marquand did Return of the Jedi. Do we really even think those guys were in charge of that? It's really kind of like Lucas sort of like behind the scenes. Just like, Vince Gilligan on Breaking Bad and all these people who are showrunners. That's what happens. So I'll be interested to see it. I do agree that I think that it is oversaturated. It's kind of annoying that every time you turn around, there's a new one of these coming around. It ruins the specialness of everything.
Right.
This Solo movie is coming 5 months after Last Jedi.
Yeah.
And it's going to get, oh man, this thing's going to get crushed, I think.
Oh, you think?
I think so. First off, what's amazing is Deadpool 2 was in June at one point. Now it's May 18th, and it's coming out a week before Star Wars.
Oh.
And I'm wondering if that might actually help Star Wars. I wonder if Deadpool, they decided to go... I'm wondering if there's some Disney Fox negotiations going on here since now Disney owns half of Fox or whatever. Like, could you maybe come out with that before so that you don't destroy all of our momentum when you come out the week after? It's kind of an interesting thing. They decided to come out with it a week before Solo now.
I also think people are less interested in a young Han Solo movie than any other proposed film they're making. I think more people want to see Ewan McGregor as young Obi-Wan again than want to see young Han Solo. And the trailer does nothing for me.
No.
Tonally, it feels all over the place, and that guy, this should not matter that much, but he looks nothing like Harrison Ford.
Nope.
Even if he gets the voice down perfect,
which it doesn't sound like from the trailer.
It doesn't sound like. Now, Donald Glover looks awesome as Lando.
Yep.
I don't think anybody doubted he would be pretty good in that, but I think you're right. I think this is going to underperform, especially after the way The Last Jedi, quote unquote, underperformed in terms of expectations.
Did you guys see that that guy who did a Childish Gambino music video to that?
No.
He cut up all the stuff with Donald Glover as Lando in there. He sounds exactly like Childish Gambino. He sounds exactly like the rap sounds exactly like the lyrics, the wordplay, everything.
Huh.
I wish I knew the name, but yeah, I bet you can just put in Childish Gambino Star Wars or whatever and find this thing. It's really fun. Like if you know Childish Gambino music and everything, this guy gets it down perfectly. Huh. It's uncanny and it's really well done. Like the wordplay is amazing.
Nice.
Sounds awesome.
So
that's like the if I produce Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah.
All right, drop the beat.
All right, I have 2 news items I want to talk about.
All right.
And one is a rant and one is not.
Okay.
First, let's talk about Quentin Tarantino. Specifically, the Uma Thurman interview that came out, and then his response interview with Deadline. What a fucking prick. Now, I wasn't there, Sounds like he asked her to drive this car that was not reliable. She definitely crashed. No one disputes that. She fucked up her body. I want to specifically talk about the spitting stuff.
Yeah.
Because Tarantino tries very brazenly to defend that by saying, somebody getting spit on the face, what's the fucking problem with that?
Right.
Like, he's trying to put the interviewer on the defensive by suggesting this is okay. This is not only okay, you're an idiot for asking.
Yeah.
And I hereby submit that in the name of realism, no one should ever have to spit on somebody's face in a movie. I would go so far as to say the special effects and makeup people could probably make more realistic looking spit than your mouth can.
Yeah, that
but
was one of his
Tarantino
primary
says it needed to be real.
Yeah.
To the point where he doesn't trust Michael Madsen to do the spitting. I have to do it myself to make sure it's right. So if you're making a movie where people are fucking, do you have to fuck the girl in the name of realism? Do you have to take the actor out and then use non-simulated real sex with your own director penis because you don't trust Michael Madsen's penis?
That Gimp scene in Pulp Fiction is a lot worse now that I think about it.
I'm just saying there is a line. My second news item is going to be about Tom Cruise and the helicopter stunt video I watched yesterday. And in this new Mission Impossible movie, he learned how to fly a fucking helicopter.
Yes, he did.
And in the name of realism.
Yeah.
Right? But that is, everyone's consensual. We're not crossing any bodily fluid lines or nudity lines. And he's taking his life in his own hands.
Yep.
But for even the way Tarantino spells out how this all went down, he describes it as two different shots. A close-up of Madsen spitting, a close-up of the spit landing on her face. If you have two characters in profile facing down each other and one spits on the other one's face, probably you're going to have them actually spit for realism's sake, right? But when you specifically are cutting away, you didn't need to do that.
Right.
And it bothers me that you did it. It's demeaning. It bothers me even more that you defend it. And it bothers me even more that you defend it so nonchalantly.
Yeah.
What's the fucking problem? Like, I feel like he's lost touch, and it makes me question a lot of things that I've heard and seen. And I think he's a piece of shit.
Yeah, I agree. I don't understand why you would have to do that. I do know that when you have the kind of mindset that he does, that everything has to be real and everything, I think that's where you start justifying the boundaries that you cross.
Yeah, exactly.
And so so everything has to be that way. That's one of the things that came out of Sin City when Robert Rodriguez was doing that, and Tarantino did that guest thing. It was during the car crash scene and all that. The Tarantino was like, I want to do this with a real car. I don't want any special effects and all that. And Rodriguez is like, you're being silly. You know, you can do this easily without it. And apparently Rodriguez won that argument or whatever because he said, look, there's no difference, you know, in doing this. But I think that's what happened with Tarantino. I don't know if in the moment he thinks it's wrong. Now that's probably that's the problem, right? He doesn't know in the moment that this is something that he shouldn't do because this is what has informed his movie career the entire way. Why should I go against this instinct that I have that everything needs to be real and whatever? So it's going to go to this point. I'm going to cross the line here. I'm going to say, yeah, let's have her drive this unsafe car.
And there's no reason for it.
Yeah.
The shot is from behind her head.
Right.
Stunt person, wig, you're done.
Yeah.
It's almost like, why does this keep coming up in the context of what women have to go through? Because his hands are choking Diane Kruger in Inglourious Bastards. His hands are choking, Uma Thurman in Kill Bill.
Yeah.
So it's like, why does this get now? Okay, he's saying that you have to see the veins bulge and you have to see the eyes water and stuff like that. So you have to really be choked. I'm like, yeah, sure. But like, why does all of these justifications, why is it in the context of stuff that women have to endure for the sake of reality?
Well,
you know?
And also it goes against, I think it goes against, he does a lot of things that are against this. Like you're saying, do they have to actually be fucking for them to actually, you know, there's other stuff in there. Why is there rap in Django Unchained?
Yeah,
right. You know? Why, there's a lot of things I can point out in any movie where you're like, that's not real.
Yeah.
So why do we insist when we shoot it that it has to be real when you're making this completely over dramatized world and everything? It really, you have gone over a line at some point, and maybe you know, unconsciously,
maybe
you have some sort of like, you know, hate women or something.
Well, maybe you've just been told so many times that you're this genius auteur who can do no wrong that you can't help but begin believing it.
I think that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
And so when I read her story, I was pretty horrified. When I saw his response, I was doubled down with the horrification because he doesn't seem to want to accept any of the blame.
Right.
And that's frustrating to me because it seems clear from at least her side of the story and other witnesses that he crossed a couple lines, at least on Kill Bill and probably on most of his films. And it took all the interest I had in this new movie he's making right out. Just put a bad taste in my mouth. And I think he's a scumbag.
Well, and furthermore, he made Death Proof right after Kill Bill.
That's weird to me. That's weird on a lot of different levels.
Which is the exact thing that Uma Thurman is talking about is being in one of these stunt cars.
Right.
And then the whole thing about Death Proof, which is a movie I love, but now is going to have a little bit of a taint to it.
Yep.
The whole thing is Kurt Russell getting off on, destroying women in this car.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have to think back to Uma Thurman in one of these cars getting in a wreck, and then that sort of just ruining their relationship forever too. There was I didn't see all this defense on Twitter, but it was funny. I saw the one guy who restored sanity to the world. He's like, guys, stop saying that Uma Thurman is wrong because she did Volume 2 after she did Volume 1. They made this whole movie to be a 3-hour movie, and they split it up into 2 parts. She didn't go and make another movie with him after that.
Right.
Just furthering the stupidity of people in general.
All right, so real quick, my other news item, Tom Cruise learning to fly a helicopter.
Right?
And I sent this to Barrett and Chris yesterday when I saw it. It's like a 2.5-3 minute video. I'll try and get Barrett to put it in the description of this podcast. It's behind the scenes. And basically, I did not know he had done this. I knew in Rogue Nation he really hung off the side of the plane. I knew he had broke his ankle filming this movie, which is called Fallout, and the trailer's amazing. But as soon as he stopped filming Rogue Nation, he started taking helicopter lessons and had learned how to fly a helicopter. And in this movie, there's a big helicopter chase with multiple helicopters. There's a scene where Cruise's character's helicopter does a death spiral 360 down to the ground. And he's really flying it and operating the camera inside the helicopter. And Chris's response was, Scientology aside, I've decided that Tom Cruise is a badass.
Yeah,
and I was like, that is exactly the right reaction. That is exactly how I felt. Like, God, you're going to know that when you see that scene. It's going to make it that much. And see, I'm talking about realism that's acceptable.
Yeah, exactly.
He
put in the work. He didn't become a novice pilot.
No.
He became not an expert, but a really, really good helicopter pilot.
2,000 hours way faster than people
They
are
said
supposed to do
something
it.
like, even to be somewhat competent, you'd have to do 8 hours a day or something like that to do the stuff that he's doing, which is getting in a helicopter that's first off going through a canyon.
Yeah, I know. It's not like he's just out there.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm going through this waterfall. I'm like,
yeah. And then having it just tailspin on him and everything. But to do that, you have to, and I can only imagine. I bet the flight instructors were tired after working with him. I bet they were like they did a 16-hour day, and then 4 hours later, he's like, "All right, I'm ready to go."
Yeah.
I've had my power nap.
Yeah, exactly.
I love his commitment to do as much as he can. There is obviously going to come a point where he's going to have to stop if he breaks himself too many times. But just like Rogue Nation, when that plane scene hit. And I knew in the back of my mind, he really did this. He's strapped in, but he's really on the side of this plane that just took off. It made the scene more intense.
Oh, yeah.
Motherfucker learned how to hold his breath underwater for over 5 minutes for that movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was sort of the max. Nope. Go learn how to fly a helicopter.
What's interesting is that in the trailer for Fallout, I didn't see a thing like the Burj Khalifa or the one off the side of the plane, a moment like that in the trailer. So I was thinking, there's no way he didn't do something super realistic here. And turns out it was
learning to fly a goddamn helicopter.
He does that move where he whips around and faces the other helicopters. It's apparently impossible to do.
I gained so much respect. And again, it's important to state again, Scientology aside.
Yeah.
As I have nothing good to say about that.
Right.
But as an actor, as a worker, I could never do that.
Mhm.
I would never even have 1/10 of that much dedication.
He's going to be 56 this year.
Yeah. See, I mean,
crazy.
I thought maybe after the broken ankle he would be done. I don't think he's going to stop anytime soon, but he's not going to get to Morgan Freeman's age and still be jumping off buildings and shit. I don't
Maybe.
think.
Maybe.
I don't think. Maybe he will. Hell, George Bush, the president, was skydiving in his 80s, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
In his 90s.
All right. So who knows? Anyway, I was fascinated by that. It blew my mind, and I hope you guys enjoy watching that video.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Again, I don't have a news item that's as good as you guys, but anytime Richard Linklater decides to do something like kind of experimental and fun, I immediately want to see this movie.
Uh-huh.
So like when I heard about Boyhood while it was getting shot, it was like this, it was forever, that Richard Linklater 12-year movie project or whatever on the IMDb. So I heard about that forever. He's doing one now that is, it's apparently set in Houston, 1969, moon landing, all that. And he has called on the people of Houston to give him everything that they have from that era. Do they have like a film or something that they shot in 1969? Do they have people? They have like people watching the moon landing? Do they have just even the slightest thing? Like they was talking about, I think there's a local TV show or whatever. He's like, do you have a person who was on that? Do you have the tape of that? And he's getting everybody in Houston to like send this stuff, or people who lived back then to send this stuff to him to make this movie.
Interesting.
And I'm wondering if is it going to be something that he shoots? Maybe he shoots some things, but I'm wondering if the whole thing is going to be like just Houston, 1969,
Pieced together.
hour and a half full of snapshots and stuff like that, because that's something that he would do.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He would make a movie that has no actors in it and just has nothing but a crowdsourced, thing there.
Yeah.
And I'm very curious. He hasn't mentioned obviously what it's about or anything, but he apparently, it says director Richard Linklater needs your Houston area photos, videos from the 1960s for a new movie. Have a home movie from Astro World or the Astrodome, or a recording of your little brother with Kitterick, which I think is one of the local TV shows that was on. Did someone use a kinescope to record the moon landing? If so, we want to see it in anything else that documents that era. There is no wrong material as long as it's from Houston in the 1960s, and we want to see it.
Even porn?
I'm sure porn. Absolutely. Yeah, why not?
No, man, I'm down. I mean, you think about, we had a question that we're not answering today about like, who do you think are like innovators, people that changed the direction of cinema and things like that. And I think Richard Linklater gets overlooked because he's done things. Obviously, Boyhood was kind of his crowning achievement, but the dialogue-driven stuff of the Before trilogy and
the rotoscope movies.
The rotoscope movies
He's
are
never
great.
been afraid to be experienced. Even Slacker, his first movie, is super unlike anything else you've ever seen.
Yeah, he explores these crazy themes in Scanner Darkly and Waking Life. Like he's super experimental, but his movies, and Waking Life maybe is on the fringe of that, but his movies have always been accessible, have been able to be entertaining while still being remarkable achievements, Yeah. So yeah, I'm totally down with this.
Yeah, just really interested to see how that'll turn out.
Except for Bad News Bears.
Yeah, except for that. And Newton Boys.
I didn't have to bring it up this time.
Yeah, that's right.
So you want to talk about Mubi?
Let's talk about some Mubi, man.
I love this service.
Yeah.
I love this service so much that I would be using it all the time, even if we weren't sponsored by Mubi.
Right.
And I've found some amazing content. I'll tell you one.
Okay.
So in the description, these descriptions are great, by the way. In the description for a movie called In Bed with Victoria.
Ooh, I like it already.
It says that while the American tradition of the romantic comedy has waned in recent years, yes, Justine Triet, her portrait of a woman at the crossroads in the courtroom and the bedroom proves the beloved genre is alive and well in France. Now, this is an awesome movie. It's a romantic comedy that's frequently hilarious, but also like really hits you on a lot of different levels. like I'm kind of getting into French cinema,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want to be that guy that's into French cinema, but I'm
Well-
kind of getting into French cinema.
One that I watched in the past week was called Bob Le Flambeur, the Bob the Gambler, and it's from Jean-Pierre Melville, who is sort of the father of French wave. I don't think he's ever like thrown into the mix of all the French New Wave directors, but I think some people call him the father of that and everything. And there's something about those movies that were made back then. There's an electricity to it. There's a sort of a movement that you don't see in the movies that are being made in America in the 50s and everything. In Bob Le Flambeur, there's a part where. So it's your basic heist movie. I love heist movies.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same story almost every time, and I fall for it every time. I'm like, oh my god! Now this one has a little bit of has a bit of a wrinkle to it, but it's the same type of thing. People. They're like, we got to rob this thing that's impossible to rob, and then somebody says something that they shouldn't, and then then they get found out and all that. But there's a scene in there where he's like drawing they're going to rob a casino. He's drawing the outside of the casino. He's in the car, and the camera's just in the back seat while he's sitting there drawing it. And you can see the movement of the car going around this casino and everything as he's drawing it down.
Nice.
And there's just some sort of like feeling to it.
Yeah.
When you watch movies in that era, the French New Wave stuff, that's why people love those so much. There's a life to them that's so different from what you see in that era. That movie's great too, and I need to see the other two that they've got.
Yeah. They've got a triple feature from him.
Yeah.
Well, this is what I love about the service, and we mentioned this last time, is that their goal is not the same as most of these streaming services you see out there. It's not about quantity. It's not about volume. It's about quality. The selection's actually pretty small, 30 movies at any given time, and every day one drops off and a new one comes on. But your story shows that it's working exactly as they intended. Yeah,
exactly.
Right? They want to be for movie fans. Mm-hmm. And the three of us consider ourselves movie fans or cinephiles. And this service is created by cinephiles. And the idea is to get you hooked on some new stuff you've never seen before, and it's working perfectly with you because now you're falling in love with French cinema, and that would never have happened, likely, had you not signed up for and used this service.
Yeah, this is stuff, I mean, the romantic comedy In the Bed with Victoria that I was talking about is a recent film, but I've gone back and watched some Jean-Luc Godard movies, and it's a genre that I really wanted to get into. And anytime I did see something like from Genet, who did Amélie, right?
Yeah, Jean-Pierre Genet.
Jean-Pierre Genet. Like, I've loved it. I just never had a chance to get into it. This is perfect.
Yeah, it's working exactly as prescribed.
Woohoo!
Yay!
And I heard from a friend, actually, after last week's episode that he actually had been considering this and said he was going to sign up using our code.
Yeah, all right.
And the another one that I saw, they put these shorts on there too.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times, it's like there's shorts that you would never have seen without something like this. And because Martin McDonagh just got nominated for all that, so they've got a short.
Three Billboards guy, right?
Three Billboards. They put his 2004 short 6-shooter on there.
I saw that.
Has Brendan Gleeson in it. It has Donald Gleeson in a cameo, like a really young Donald Gleeson. That movie, oh my God, it's a 27-minute short film. It is funny as fuck. Really? Oh my God, that movie. It's really it's a dark comedy. It's in the vein of the Martin McDonagh stuff that we're used to and everything, but. I was watching this with very zero expectations because these short 2000 well before they even became what they became or whatever usually are like okay, that was a good start or whatever, but dude, this is a funny movie.
I gotta check that out.
And so I would definitely see that.
Yeah, definitely sign up. Go to mubi.com/cinemasins. So that's mubi.com/cinemasins. Let me tell you what you get.
Ooh.
You get a full month to enjoy this without paying 1 red cent.
That's pretty awesome.
Yep.
That's a 30-day free trial.
Yeah,
I guarantee you'll fall in love
Where's
with
the risk?
Yeah.
You don't use it for 30 days. You don't keep going.
And like you alluded to, Jeremy, last time we did this, that's potentially 30 free movies that you could watch.
Yeah.
Actually, more than that, because you're going to have
gonna
all the old stuff that's
Yep.
still there, too. So potentially up to 60 movies.
Yeah.
You
if
can
want.
mow through these things pretty quickly, too.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
So broaden your horizons.
Yeah.
Join us at Mubi.com/Cinemasins.
Recommending and warning.
Let's do some.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. That's a funny moment in Neighbors.
Yes, it is. Oh, shit.
I thought you were doing the beginning to Fergie's London Bridge.
No, I don't do much Fergie.
Oh, shit. That's how it begins.
Hmm.
How come every time you come around, my Lundy Bridge want to go down?
Yeah. I watched that music video many times
Oh my
because I
God.
think we both send it, right?
Yes, we did. That was an early one.
Yeah, that was like a first year one.
How about some recommendations and some warnings? I've got a really good warning.
Let's hear it. Oh, well, you want to start with recommendations?
Totes amazeballs.
It won the Academy Award
Oh, for what?
for Best Movie Ever Made.
Yeah, let's start with recommendations.
Well, last week we talked with Aaron Dicer about 2017. One of the movies he brought up that said was good was a movie called Gifted with Chris Evans.
Uh-huh.
And I called it The Little Girl Good at Math,
Yes.
which is all I remembered. That actually happened to come on a couple days ago, and I watched it. It's great.
Really?
It doesn't fall into the traps you might expect from a story like this, because basically we've seen these kind of stories before. Basically, Chris Evans is the uncle. The mother of the little girl is dead. She wants her to live with Chris Evans, but that dead mom's mother, who was very hard on her and pushed her too hard all through life, wants the little girl for herself so she can get her into math. It's basically a Good Will Hunting crossed with Bad Santa. No, I'm just kidding. The interplay between Chris Evans and the little girl is great. The little girl is fantastic. And I don't know that I've ever seen her in anything else, but she reminds me a lot of the Mad Men girl, Karen Shipka. She's got a very unique face, and she just plays a little wiser than her years. And so basically it's a custody battle. It's Chris Evans trying to figure out if he's even the right thing for this little girl. It's grandma trying to win in court to steal her away. And I found it very enjoyable, very moving. And yeah, from the trailer, the reason I dismissed it as Little Girl Good at Math is from the trailer, it looked like it was paint by numbers.
Right.
But it wasn't that at all. There's some great lines in there, too. The woman who plays the grandmother, I don't know if it's the actress or the writing, but she has this snarky delivery. She's like, at one point she's talking to Chris Evans and she's like, yeah, go move out into the suburbs and teach her how to say irregardless.
Nice.
Stuff like that. And the interplay between those two, because there is still, because she's his mother too, there is still love between them, but they're fighting over custody for this little girl. And anyway, I found it really good. Dicer doesn't steer you wrong.
Nice.
So
Nice.
Gifted. That's my recommend.
Little Girl Good at Math.
Little Girl Good at Math. That was the working title.
I read an interview with Chris Evans back a few months ago before Gifted came out, and it was all about like him prepping for Infinity War. He was getting in Captain America shape and stuff like that, and he was exhausted. In the interview, he's kind of alluding to the fact that he's going to be relieved when he doesn't have to play Captain America anymore, and he was effusive about this movie. He was like, man, yes, Infinity War is going to be great, but I want to talk about Gifted. It's really, really good.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So apparently he was on board.
Even having Dicer recommended, I was surprised how much I liked it.
Cool.
I've already mentioned the stuff that I saw on Mubi. I would definitely recommend finding Six Shooter
Yeah.
and watching that, and even Bob LaFlambeur, which is like I said, it's just that's just outstanding movies that are from the before pre-French New Wave and everything. I haven't seen anything new outside of that, so I'm gonna dive into the well here of movies that I don't feel like I've mentioned enough. And that would be The Way Back. It's a movie that it's about a kid who gets a job at a water park place,
Okay. Yeah.
almost like Adventureland in
Right.
a way. But it's one of those coming of age type of movies. He's learning the ropes of what a job is like, a summer job that you don't really have to care much about, and he's fallen in love with the Anna Sophia Robb character and all that. But Sam Rockwell is in this. He's fantastic, of course. Maya Rudolph is in it. Toni Collette. Steve Carell plays his stepdad, or like like not a stepdad, but a boyfriend of his mom and everything, and he's like an asshole. Steve Carell is just a dick in this movie. Like you don't really ever see Steve Carell this way. But you want to see a sort of nice light and breezy movie, and it's really funny, especially because of Rockwell and everything. I would recommend The Way Back. I don't think it got it gets much due really. I don't think it was a big hit. I saw it on cable quite a bit during the year after it was released and everything. So I've seen it through that mostly, and anytime it's on, I just watch it because it's one of those type of movies. So
I've heard good things.
Yeah, it's really good.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
I've been watching a lot of sexy movies.
Yeah.
Partially, we watched the 50 Shades Darker movie for the Sins video. About to do a vintage Madonna video that's coming out the week that this is posted. But I've been watching just off and on, I guess because it's around Valentine's Day, a lot of movies coming on that have captured my attention at different parts. Two of them are from François Ozon, French director who directed this movie called Swimming Pool.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Which is extremely sexy and really well done.
Yeah.
The woman that so it's Charlotte Rampling.
Yeah, Charlotte Rampling.
But then the younger girl is Ludivine Sagnier.
Yeah.
And
her.
yes, her. But yeah, man, it's very, very good. Also saw Chloe, which is
that Amanda Seyfried? Yeah.
and Julianne Moore and Liam Neeson's, and that's
Neeson's.
That's right. That's super sexy. And the other one, and I'm actually going to get to another recommend. Sorry, the other one is Unfaithful, which we've talked about before. Diane Lane and Olivier
It gets
Martinez.
less sexy about halfway through.
Well, yeah.
The first half is sexy.
The first half.
Yeah?
Woo,
It's
man.
steamy.
It's steamy.
It's steamy.
I want to just throw this out there as a soft recommend because I didn't like it nearly as much as I wanted to. The Post. The Post, I think, is a little bit disappointing. It's perfectly fine, perfectly acted, directed abstemiously by Steven Spielberg, but not like. I don't think I would watch this movie and immediately know that it was Steven Spielberg that directed that. There's a couple of shots where like people are walking towards you or something like that.
Some tracking shots in there where, that's Spielberg.
Yeah, it's really good and it's about really interesting content. You're right about the David Cross Bob Odenkirk reunion is just like nice to see that. But everything is good. It just felt like paint by numbers to me. Like there's a scene where Meryl Streep gets her emotional moment. This is going to be in all the Oscar pre-rolls where and it's kind of misplaced. Like it's before the next day that something important really happens. And it's like, oh, we got to get Meryl her scene here, you know? And she plays it very, very well. But it's just like, I don't know, something was left lacking. It didn't have the charisma or the firepower of All the President's Men. I think it's just kind of more generic. I'm saying that, but I do still like it, and I do still recommend it.
All right, so that was a soft recommend.
Soft recommend.
Very soft.
I will second Swimming Pool. I saw it when it came out. That's a really interesting movie.
Yeah, on a lot of levels.
Those movies that, it's a sort of a mind bender.
Yeah,
and it's really good. By the way, sorry to France for all of our pronunciations today.
Sorry, France. Je suis désolé.
I went through 4 years of French and I still can't speak it correctly.
What's crazy is that watching all these French films, I can pick up a lot of what they're saying.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, people that do this with English, like they'll watch like an English show with subtitles on it to kind of get that muscle memory going. And it brought back those, I think I had like 6 years or so total of French. And like I could pretty much understand the broad strokes of what's going on. Probably can't speak it very well. But yeah.
Our buddy Jeremy Simser is in France right now.
Oh, mais oui.
Posted a picture yesterday of the Champs-Élysées.
That's probably better pronunciation than anything we've said. So
Arrivederci. I've never been to Europe, so I'm jealous. He went over there for his wife's roller derby tournament.
Yeah, and they did well, right?
I don't know.
I think they got bronze, right?
Yeah, they got bronze.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about roller derby. I haven't even seen the roller derby movies.
Bronze means first in roller derby.
Okay, awesome.
It's basically getting. It's basically like trying to outlap the other team, basically, right? Isn't it?
But I think you can like jab them with elbows.
You can
and shit
hit them
too,
and
right?
shit. Yeah. But it's stuff like that. It's like you trying to roller skate past the other team.
Yeah, I could get down with that.
Yeah,
man.
no, I used to watch it.
Did you really?
Like back in the 80s when ESPN was ESPN, when really ESPN, because they used to have all those, niche sports and everything, and they used to play roller derby, and like I think they used to play like the kind of roller derby where like it was like almost getting to the WWE level. Like you're watching it to see people get hurt, basically.
Right. And they've got outlandish characters.
Yeah. But Simser, when he was out here, when we were at the convention, described because I had forgotten the rules, and I've forgotten it again, even after he explained it to me. But he was telling me that, and I was like, so is this that? No, that's not the rules at all. And I probably just went through the same thing on this show, by the way.
I blew my wife's mind yesterday when she found out that I was excited to watch curling at the Olympics.
Oh, hell yeah.
She thought I was joking. Like for 5 minutes, she thought I was pulling a fast one. She was like, "You really like curling?"
Yeah, man.
I was like, "Yeah, I don't know why. I don't fully understand it, but I really like watching
I know,
it.
it's
It's
compelling.
not a joke." All right, should we warn people?
Yes.
Yep.
Danger, Will Robinson.
All right, I'm going to warn you about a movie that I spent way too much time watching. It's called Welcome to the Jungle. And this is not Jumanji.
Jumanji.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Welcome to the Jungle. It stars Adam Brody from the OC.
Yeah.
And it's also got Jean-Claude Van Damme, Kristen Schaal, Dennis Haysbert, and Chris Van Damme, Jean-Claude's son.
No way.
Oh.
And then basically, the way I would describe this to you is somebody watched Tropic Thunder and then made the laziest imitation ever.
Oh, my God.
So these people are all part of an office, and they're sent on some wilderness retreat. And Jean-Claude Van Damme is their instructor because he's this war hero with all these decorations, and he was a SEAL and what have you, and survival and whatnot. And then people start dying, and they have to figure out why. They find out Jean-Claude Van Damme is lying, just like Nick Nolte in Tropic Thunder was. And Adam Brody has to figure out how to get him out and let them live. Boy, is this movie bad.
Is it a comedy?
It is.
Oh.
It is a comedy. Jean-Claude does himself no favors by appearing in this. He does his son a favor, obviously, by getting him a role. I couldn't tell you who Chris Van Damme was in the movie because I didn't know he was in it until after I'd watched it and I looked up the cast.
He plays Brett, Jeremy.
Oh, he plays Brett.
Brett.
I don't remember which one Brett is.
Look at the big brain on Brett.
But see, he's basically, Adam Brody's like the sensible one. We've got to, find shelter and we've got to find food and blah, blah, blah. But there's one coworker who goes full Lord of the Flies. So within like one day, he's become a prophet and they're praying to him. And they're like a tribe with mud on their faces and everything. It's really silly and stupid. And don't even waste 5 minutes.
It also has his daughter in it.
Oh,
too.
my God.
Just look this up. Bianca Brigitte Van Damme.
Who does she play?
She plays Ashley.
Oh, I don't remember Ashley either.
Brett and Ashley.
Brett and Ashley.
All right. Yeah. Anyway, stay away. Stay far
When
away.
did this come out?
2013.
Yeah, just
and
a few years ago.
It's on the IMDb. It's got a 5.0. That's
Interesting.
bad.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. I'm steering you away from it. It's bad.
I don't have a true warning. I have been pretty lucky in the past month. I haven't watched very many things that I'd be like, oh, that sucked.
It's all that movie.
Yeah, all that movie and all that, just going after movies that are getting showered with praise and everything. But the one out of this group, and I would hesitate to say that it's a warning. It's definitely not a recommend. So it's not even a warn. It's the one out of that group that I felt really was not well made was All the Money in the World.
Oh, yeah.
Christopher Plummer is great. I think he definitely deserves an Oscar nomination and everything. I do think that maybe possibly he's getting this nomination based on what he had to do to get into it and everything. He's great. And again, I can't even think about Kevin Spacey in that role. Can't even think about it. And I think Michelle Williams is good. I really have a problem with Mark Wahlberg in this movie. And I don't have I'm generally okay with Wahlberg. Kind of like Keanu Reeves. If you put him in the right thing, he's fine.
Yeah.
But when Mark Wahlberg is in that super earnest, pleading type of role, you got to go do this, man. His eyes always bug out, and he's always like, "Hey, you gotta go, you gotta do the right thing," blah blah blah. It gets to the point where I'm like, "Fuck you!"
Oh my god!
It really is nails across a chalkboard when he's earnest.
You mentioned that moment in The Happening.
Yeah,
and I looked it up, and there's a YouTube video with this on the loop. The woman comes up and she's like, "You're stealing from us," and he's like, "Ma'am, no."
Yeah. Wahlberg looks like in those roles, he looks like a guy who he's really wanted to act all his life.
Yeah.
And somebody, pulls him off the street and gives him a chance. And he's like, I can play Ernest, man. I can play it. And he comes up there, this, he did this in Three Kings. I thought he started wearing me out too. It's like, then that's an earlier one for him and everything. He's like, because when he plays that ultra earnest kind of character, you're like, the other thing about the movie is that it's all over the place as far as it's telling its story, because at the beginning of it right off the bat, it's like, okay, kid's been kidnapped. Then it goes back in time and shows the family before all this stuff happens. And the main kid who gets kidnapped is younger and everything. And for a bit there, you're like, are these even the same people? And what's going on? So they go through all that, and the whole setup is that the father of this family is the son or the grandson of Christopher Plummer, and Christopher Plummer, who's just an absolute dick in this movie, finally giving one of his family a chance to earn a lot of money and basically learn the system and take over when he dies, essentially. So at the very beginning of it, it's like, you see them sort of in court, like learning the new life and everything. And then before you know it, it's jumped into the future again, but it's the future just before the kid is kidnapped. Oh. And it's like, what's going on? Like the father was, you don't really get a chance to get to know this father at all. And you're thinking, okay, yeah, he's kind of down on his luck. He needs this break, blah, blah, blah. Next thing you see, he's in some like other country, and he's on drugs, and he's sleeping with some other woman, and his son has grown up, and you don't know. I mean, it's the structure of this is so off.
That's weird.
And then it finally just settles into the one groove. Like, why did you go back in time at the beginning of this for 20 to 30 minutes, and then you just decide to sit on this one and never flash back again after that? And it seems like it's all over the place. I don't know if it's because of the Kevin Spacey stuff. I don't think it would be.
This is Ridley Scott, right?
Ridley Scott, yeah.
Well, and it's not, I was gonna say Ridley is, he's not reliable for me in terms of what you're talking about.
Yeah,
because he's made movies like, did he make Spy Game or did Tony make Spy Game?
That was Tony.
Well, they have the same blood, so I'm gonna lump them in.
Oh yeah, they've made very similar movies.
But that Body of Lies movie is that the one with Leo?
That's Ridley, yeah.
And that one is cut in a really weird way. But then you have movies like Alien or The Martian where it's just perfect. So I don't understand why that happens. But
he's probably batting like 725 for his career.
Yeah, well, it's funny. He is very much like a slugger.
Yeah.
Right? He's going to hit you a home run, or he's probably going to ground out.
Yeah.
Or maybe walk.
Yeah, he's he's 80 now.
Wow,
which he looks awesome.
Oh
for
yeah, absolutely. And I think he's one of those guys. He just really likes to work. Like Woody Allen will come out with one every year. He comes out with one every year, and I think that that keeps you alive and keeps you vital and all that. And I don't think he really cares one way or another if it's going to be like, an ultra hit or whatever. He just likes to do the work.
Yeah.
And so you'll get a Martian every once in a while, but then you start getting
Alien Covenant.
Yeah, Alien Covenant and the promise of 3 more or whatever. So,
well, I have a hard warn on the Cloverfield paradox.
I've heard nothing but bad.
What's funny is that So everybody freaked the fuck out when this commercial ran, and the early word I saw from Twitter friends was good. And then the next day, when everybody who had seen it had time to write their review, yeah, it's bad, right?
Yeah. I caught it. So I caught it the night of the Super Bowl, and I had no context of what it was going to be like from Twitter or the reviews or anything like that, because they came out with the commercial on the Super Bowl, and then it was available after the Super Bowl. So I love Cloverfield. I love Cloverfield as a movie, and I really liked the marketing campaign for Cloverfield. J.J. Abrams was super smart about like these little Easter eggs, these little kind of the mystery about it all. The movie kind of just overindulges by the end of it, but I was on board. I really like 10 Cloverfield Lane. I don't think that it needed to be a Cloverfield project, but it certainly worked as a movie for me. And so I was psyched to see this movie. Even though from what we were talking about when we were previewing the God Particle thing, it seemed a little odd that we hadn't seen anything about it. We hadn't seen any trailers or any information about it. We thought it was going to be a secret. But it turns out Paramount, I guess, was negotiating with Netflix to take over this. And I don't know how this would have worked cinematically if they had dropped it in theaters. It would have made no money whatsoever. So they probably did the right thing.
I don't know about that. This is something that fascinates me and annoys me about this Cloverfield shit. The first movie gets more credit than it deserves because it was marketed so well. It's an enjoyable movie. The second movie gets more credit than it deserves because it came out of nowhere. No one knew it had been made. No one knew a Cloverfield sequel was coming. And the only reason they were able to achieve that was by taking a completely different movie and tacking some Cloverfield shit on in the last 3 minutes.
Right.
It's not a Cloverfield movie. And it's the same thing here. They took a completely different movie. They've already openly announced, we had to add in the connections to the Cloverfield universe. But they put that trailer on the Super Bowl and Twitter went fucking nuts. It's the only film franchise I can think of that gets so much love because it's good at surprises and marketing. And not... When was the last time you heard somebody talk about the content of any of these films? The first two.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, usually it's...
Everybody
why
was
did they do
so
that?
amazed that they had somehow made a Cloverfield movie and were releasing it that night with no one knowing, and that somehow makes the whole franchise look better in the eyes of those fans, and I don't get it.
Well, I'll tell you about the content of the movie. It fucking sucks.
That's what I've heard.
The personnel here was surprising. When I saw the credits come up and it's Z Zhang and it's Chris
Brule.
O'Dowd and Daniel Bruhl and Gugu Mbatha Raw, I was like, yeah, all right, I'm on board with this. And it just doesn't know what it's trying to say. Like it's weird for the sake of being weird at times. It's essentially Event Horizon, but without being scary. And then they have a completely different movie. So it takes place mostly on the space station that has done something to where it created a paradox and gone to a different dimension, which is a great idea. There's so many good ideas in this movie. And then, the Earth disappears and they're on the other side of the galaxy or something like that. Somebody shows up on the crew unexpectedly and is not explained for a while. All those ideas are interesting to me. There's a crisis happening on Earth involving the Cloverfield monsters. It just doesn't execute. It's silly at times. It pulls its punches at times. It's not scary. It's not smart. It's not like pulling on your heartstrings, even though they have this scene with Gugu Mbatha Raw at the end where she gets teared up and she's thinking about the crew members that she's lost and the family that she's lost. And it's a real long shot on her. It seems like it's like a couple of minutes and she's squeezing out these tears. And you're like, I don't fucking care. I don't fucking care at all about this character. Like, you've given me nothing to make this impactful at all. So, yeah, don't watch it. I mean, you can hate watch it, I guess, but don't go in expecting anything.
This is
good.
an interesting case, and I'll be curious to see what, if anything, Netflix ever says about how many people watched it, because I think everybody won here. Paramount dumped a movie that wouldn't have done well for them in theaters, because I think it would have done well opening weekend because it was another surprise Cloverfield film, but I think the word of mouth would have hurt it, because word of mouth on 10 Cloverfield Lane was really good, and that propelled it. So Paramount got rid of a movie that was not going to make them money. The rumors are they sold it to Netflix for $50 million.
Yep.
And I'll bet you good money that they made back most of their production costs, if not all, and that Netflix still probably views this as a win for them because I bet you millions of people went and watched that movie.
Probably so. Probably so.
If 11 million people watched Bright in its opening weekend, I bet this did just as well in the first 3 days.
Yeah, especially with the marketing.
Yeah, a Super Bowl ad, I mean, does wonders for things like that, especially if it's immediately around the corner, like the This Is Us episode that came. I mean, there's people who never saw an episode that probably watched that right afterwards. And to think that this trailer came out during the Super Bowl and said, hey, watch this. It's available as soon as the Super Bowl is over.
Yeah.
It's not even, you don't have to wait 6 months like most of the movie trailers that you see. In the Super
or
Bowl.
go anywhere. You can literally, everybody's got a Netflix subscription, so you could just fire it up right then and there. Where you're trying to sleep off
I mean, it's an interesting moment, and I'll be curious to see what else like this we start seeing moving forward.
It's such a wasted chance, though. Brilliant marketing, the immediacy of it, the ideas of this movie.
But see, I would argue
cast.
all the Cloverfield movies are like that. None of those movies.
They're not anywhere near this bad, though.
But I haven't seen this one, but I don't think they're as good as everybody says they are. I think it's kind of like the Beatles. They're a little overrated, even though they're good.
Yeah, I could see that.
One thing that's good about this, though, is that I can finally say Gugu and Batha Raw, and you know who I'm talking about.
She's awesome, by the way. She is beautiful, and
Mm-hmm.
she plays, the central character here. I mean, the thing about this pisses me off about movies, where especially space movies, where they're like, a crew member dies, and they just fucking go about their lives.
Mm-hmm.
It happened in Sphere. It's not a space movie, but it's basically the same thing. And people just go on like, oh, well, that's a real shame. A dude fucking died, and they're like, oh, all right, let's move on to the next thing.
Yeah, but I guess the problem is in a 2-hour movie is that if you spend a lot of time mourning, you're going to get to the point of going, okay, I get it.
Yeah, well, that happened in Alien Revenant, actually.
Alien Revenant?
Yeah. Yeah, Alien Covenant. They were just like, "Oh, James Franco's dead. Well, let's send him out." We took great pains in that first Hunger Games video to explain that Jennifer Lawrence is still fucking crying like 10 minutes after the Rue character dies, and like it just seems like it takes forever. Like, come on, get on with the Hunger Games already. Exactly.
We got some cues?
Question. I got something to say. I want the truth.
I am listening.
We do, and before that, I want to read an email that we got from a listener that will lead to a question. We meant to get to this a couple of episodes ago, so Christian, sorry for the wait, but we wanted to read this because it really touched us, and even though it's been several weeks, I bet you a lot of this stuff is still going on. In fact, I know it is still going on. Hello there, Cinemasins crew. My name is Christian, and I'm a big fan of you guys from Puerto Rico. I have been watching your videos since I was in high school, around the time that YouTube account started, and have been loving what you guys do ever since. But around a year ago, when I first started listening to your podcast, I have been religiously hearing them every Monday on my way to college. You may have probably heard about the situation in Puerto Rico, yes, related to Hurricane Maria. Around 60% of the island is still without power. Jesus. It's been a rough, it's been a rough fourth quarter of 2017 and first of 2018. Which is ridiculous, by the way.
Yeah, it should be criminal.
It's absurd. Where I'm going with all this is that after the hurricane, one of the things that brought my sanity in check was listening to SinCast. Thanks to you guys, you've helped made the recovery process less suckish and have given me the laughter and excitement for films I needed. You've turned my late nights into great listening sessions while he does homework in the dark. As I'm writing this, the energy company is finally working on my street, and I wanted to thank and congratulate you guys for everything you do. Your passion for films really does make a difference, especially since my major is in film production. Oh. That is a really touching thing. I'm so glad that we could be a distraction for all the crap you had to go through, and I'm sure any listener in Puerto Rico, man, we feel for you. That's just, it's ridiculous that it's taking this long.
It makes me mad because the problem is that contracts for cleanup and repair were rewarded as kickbacks, right? There was that company in Whitefish, Montana, with one employee that got the biggest energy contract, and they'd never done anything like this. I read an article yesterday about a woman in Atlanta who got a food contract to deliver I want to say like 1 million
meals. It was
meals.
in the millions of meals.
And she only delivered, she's her only employee, and she only ever delivered 56,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
And they eventually sent her a letter and said, your contract is terminated. Don't send any more meals. It's just, why would she ever have been in the position to win that bid in the first place if she's got one employee? What can she possibly put on paper? Don't tell me there's not corruption going on in this bullshit.
Yeah.
And people are fucking dying without power, without clean water.
Yeah,
I can't personally fix it.
It's a failure everywhere.
It really is. It really is. And we should be ashamed.
Yeah.
Anyway, he had a question as well.
Yes. So on to the question. Imagine you're in Puerto Rico at the time of the hurricane and are stuck with 3 movie characters of any genre. Who would you pick and why? That's a fun question. It's probably something to just distract from all the bullshit that's going on down there. Fun thing to think about and to answer. What do you guys think?
Okay, so we need to have somebody who is adept at survival, obviously, in this. So I'm going to have Hugh Glass from The Revenant.
There you go.
We get into any situation, I'm pretty sure that he has the idea.
Those Puerto Rican bears can be vicious.
Indeed. So I'm going to have Hugh Glass. I'm also going to have, we just talked about the way back. I think this is how I got the idea for the recommend. I'm going to have Sam Rockwell. Now, Sam Rockwell in the movie is not exactly the type of guy who's, I would say, reliable or anything like that. He's just very funny, and he's going to keep you in check. He's going to say, let's not take this so seriously all the time. So I'm going to have somebody who can give me some laughs and keep me in check. And then I'm going to have Doc Brown from Back to the Future.
Oh.
Because I figure after he's made the time travel machine and everything from the Back to the Future movies, he's stopped making things that suck anymore. I think he's inspired at this point to make things that he's almost MacGyver-ish in a way.
Interesting.
That he can be able to, invent some things that will help us along the way.
He invented Mr. Fusion.
That's right.
Well, I don't know if he
It runs
invented
off
it.
of trash. No, I think he invented that.
I always took that gag as Mr. Coffee had invented Mr. Fusion, and he just bought one at the store and put it on the car.
Interesting. I thought he had invented that.
I don't think it would have a Mr. Fusion logo on it.
Yeah, that's a
if
good
he'd
point.
invented it.
That's a good point.
But as you recall, in before we even know the DeLorean works in Back to the Future, all of his inventions are terrible.
Right.
Before that,
Yes.
they have some sort of great intention, but no real way of working whatsoever. And he probably got lucky with the DeLorean too. But
well, yeah, with the flex capacity,
Yeah.
I finally invented something that works.
Right. So, but I think after he's made this, he's on the right track, and I think that in a situation like that, he would be able to help us out with his knowledge and everything.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Good call.
Nice.
It's funny that you bring up MacGyver.
MacGyver.
So I limited myself. I didn't want to choose like Jesus or Superman or anybody like that.
I don't know if Jesus would actually be that much help.
Try telling that to my parents.
I mean, he could raise the dead and everything.
There you go. He can multiply the loaves and fishes, baby.
Oh, okay, yeah. The food thing.
All right, so I went with Rambo, MacGyver, and Leo from Blood Diamond. And my reasoning is, between the three of them, there feels like a good mix of ingenuity, compatibility, and smooth talking, quick thinking.
Why do you need compatibility?
It's a fucking war zone.
It's a hurricane.
It's the same thing as a war zone, baby. People are out there looting. People are out there breaking and entering, stealing TVs.
Gonna steal your shit.
I'm not gonna die because Rambo's by my side.
Now, what's gonna happen is you're gonna be like in your house, sitting in the middle of a hurricane, cut off from the rest of society. And you're going to have to spend all this fucking time with John Rambo.
Hey, he's got stories. I bet he's got
You're
stories.
sitting there. No, he doesn't talk. He doesn't ever talk in these movies.
Well, then I'm not going to be annoyed by him.
Except when he's saying it's not my war.
And I get to listen to Leo with a, African accent. And MacGyver can, build shit. He can create fire without flint or tinder.
You might as well have Tim. Tim the Enchanter.
It's funny, when I originally started writing down characters and everything, I was thinking along these lines too. I like need some sort of protection for the people who out there who are on the way desperate side and everything, and who want to like rob from people and stuff like that. So I had Arnold Schwarzenegger from T2.
There you go.
The T-800 essentially protecting me and everything. It would have to be obviously the Terminator from T2, right? It can't be. It can't be anything before that. But yeah, like. But then I was thinking about it. It's like, you know what? I'm gonna give the benefit of the doubt here and just say I don't. I have Hugh Glass. I don't need anybody to be my gunman.
I went self-defense first. That was my first thought.
Sitting in there,
staring
straight ahead.
It's not a bad
Rambo.
idea though.
All right, my first person is going to be Theo, Clive Owen's character from Children of Men. I think it's underrated, like his ability to avoid danger throughout this entire movie and to deal with a catastrophic environment, going from a bombing to all this crazy revolutionary stuff, and being pursued, being in this war camp basically, and being able to escape. He leads her through all this bullshit, avoiding these very bad dudes, and even delivers her baby, like and somehow protects the child too. So I think he can deal with the crisis.
No, that's a good call.
I think he can
That's a
really,
good call.
He's not physically imposing or anything like that. He can just get out of situations. The second person is going to be T'Challa, or Black Panther, from Black Panther and Civil War. By the way, I cannot wait to see Black Panther.
Boy, the early reviews, like most Marvel movies, but they're strong. And what's really telling is that the average score was like 8.6. That's really high. So they not only all liked it, they all liked it a lot.
Well, not only is he charismatic, but he's got this supply of all this vibranium. He's got connections with politics and stuff like that. He's super rich. He can probably make some shit happen.
I like how you gave me shit for picking Rambo and then you picked fucking Black Panther.
I'm not picking him for his Black Pantheriness. I'm picking him for his
you get that one, you get the other. It's part of a package.
Listen, if I need to break it out, that's fine. But at least I got a personality on the guy that's protecting me. I'm not fucking John Rambo, where he's just going to start shouting or
By the way,
just shut up.
Apparently, in this trailer that ran on the Super Bowl for Infinity War, there's a shot of Tony in the Iron Man suit that sort of shows it almost self-forming around him. Apparently, I don't know this. I don't read a lot of Marvel comics. But apparently in the comics, there's a whole arc where he has a suit that literally lives under his skin.
Oh, really?
And comes out of his skin to form around his body. And people are suggesting that's the suit we've gotten to in the MCU now. Because there's that shot of Doctor Strange doing his orange thing where Iron Man flies through him. And Iron Man's suit is doing stuff in that scene like autonomously. Anyway,
seems interesting.
I don't want to see that silly bullshit. But Black Panther, who's your third choice?
My third choice, we got to have some entertainment, so I'm going with Tiffany Haddish from Girls Trip.
Well, you guys are all about her.
I don't even know her character's name.
It's crazy how just one performance, and then it's so memorable and so funny that she's instantly shot up to a higher level. Maybe she doesn't deserve it. I don't know, but she's hilarious.
She's so great, man. I mean, it's like at the beginning of the movie when she's over at Jada Pinkett Smith's house and she's saying bye to her kids and she's all weepy and she's like, "Heifer, you are not going to war." She's hilarious, but also she's fiercely loyal in that movie. So I would want somebody that's not only going to keep me, loose and laughing and things like that, that she'll be protective and loyal and stuff like that. So yeah, that's my pick.
All right. Needs more Rambo, but
yep.
I'm fine with it.
I have a paucity of Rambo-ness.
That's right.
Would you say that I have a plethora of Rambos?
After hearing about Jeremy's love of great movie premises, whether or not the movie turns out to be good, I began thinking about a bad movie that I love due to its concept, The Queen of the Damned. This was Aaliyah's last movie role before her death. I absolutely love the premise of the centuries-old vampire who is tired of living in the shadows, breaks out, and becomes a lead singer of a goth metal band. When you put it like that, aside from the casting choices, I feel like this movie got tripped up by the lore of Anne Rice's The Vampire Chronicles, and specifically The Vampire Lestat and Queen of the Damned. the books. In my opinion, the premise alone would have made a great movie or even a Netflix series. Are there any other terribly adapted movies that you think would be better served by simply taking the premise and calling it something else?
Now, it's a tough question to sort of break down. From what I can understand, what he's saying here is that the Queen of the Damned was even though that was in the Anne Rice Vampire Chronicle stuff and everything, we were used to the Vampire Lestat stuff. We were the Interview with the Vampire and all that. That's what we were used to. The Queen of the Damned comes along and it's not that at all. It's another part of the story, but we're so used to this romantic type of Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise bullshit that it comes out of left field, and it makes no sense to a moviegoer who may not have read the books or anything like that. So the way I take this is that it almost requires either an existing movie franchise or based on a book or maybe based on a video game or something like that they used the name of something. Like Doom would be an example.
Right.
Like Doom, that movie doesn't need to exist.
Yeah.
They could have called that anything else. It's still a piece of shit, but they put Doom on it because, they want to get the people out.
Right.
They just, so the way I thought of this was, and this was still tough for me to come up with a movie, because a lot of times a movie franchise is so reliant on all the other stuff that happened before it and everything. Like if you get into the second and third movies, so reliant on all the other stuff that it's hard to imagine them as any other standalone movie. But I finally, maybe this is wrong, but I came down to the fact that Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, could be not a Star Wars movie.
Okay.
Obviously, you're going to have to cut out any connection to the Star Wars, which I don't think is. I mean, it's you'd have to change names of people and all that. But at the heart of Attack of the Clones is it's a mystery. It's a detective story. If you rename the character something else, some of the actions in there may not be as bad. Like one of the things, and this happened in the Red Letter Media video, and I believe we pointed it out. The point where Obi-Wan is jumping out after that little spaceship thing that's trying to kill Natalie Portman. It's like, this is such an Anakin thing to do, but they make Obi-Wan do it. And it doesn't make any sense. But if you just change the names, then it doesn't matter at that point. But I like the idea of an interplanetary mystery, a detective of some sort going around and trying to figure out, is this government up to no good and all that, and what are they plotting? Imagine that they're plotting, building these robots and everything to dominate the galaxy and everything. So
would you keep in the convenient eavesdropping?
Absolutely not. That is something I would definitely change. I would change that entire sequence leading. I mean, I'd change all of Attack of the Clones pretty much, but the entire sequence, like the pretend death thing that happens, the eavesdropping. Oh my God, so much nonsense.
You'd keep,
and he just somehow knows where to go, and I guess it's because of the Force, but they never really explicitly say
the entire planet. Yeah. Would you keep Natalie Portman's midriff?
Midriff? Oh, of course. Why would I change that? But I do think that if you just made that not a Star Wars, you have a little bit more breathing room to make that a better movie. And just don't call it Star Wars. And it suddenly there's some of the weight of this movie is lifted. You can go on do better and more complex things, and you can take Jar Jar out.
I think I misunderstood this question, because the answer I wrote down was The Dark Knight Rises, because it does so much from the Nightfall comic storyline, but it's also so indebted to the first two films in the trilogy that it can't do everything that Nightfall does, and so it ends up not really being part of the trilogy and not really being a proper Bane and Batman movie.
I think that's in a way that works.
Yeah, because terribly adapted.
Yeah, this is terribly adapted. And so Dark Knight Rises is sort of relying on previous chapters, but it's also its own thing.
Yeah.
and it feels like kind of a mess and everything. And if you were to make this a standalone Batman movie and just call it Nightfall, then
it would be rad.
Right.
It would be rad. It would be rad. I want it so bad. But while you were talking, I thought of Alien Resurrection. It's another one that they felt they had to have Sigourney Weaver. They had to have all these connections to the Alien franchise where, in my mind, the idea of a prison colony planet having to battle killer aliens and the guards having to decide whether to let the prisoners help, and if so, which ones. And so I think that's a much more interesting story if you don't force yourself to tie it to all the other alien stuff. So that while you were talking, that was the one I was like, well, if I understand the question correctly now, I would say Alien Resurrection.
But
it suffers because of its tie to the franchise.
No, I think your Dark Knight Rises is a good example of this.
Good. Well, that'll be my main one then.
I'm actually stealing a little bit from the listener because I did read all of the Vampire Chronicles when they were available. I think the one has come out since I read them in high school. Man, I love that shit. I loved it, especially these first three books, Interview with the Vampire, Vampire Lestat, and Queen of the Damned. And I think it would make a really good Netflix series, even if you took off the name of Interview with the Vampire or the Vampire Chronicles. Because as we saw, we were just talking earlier today about what we do in the shadows. You can still do a lot of good shit with vampire stories. Only Lovers Left Alive, that Jim Jarmusch movie that came out a couple years ago.
I haven't seen that.
That dealt with vampires. Like,
Let the right one in.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of material that you can go through. The version that Anne Rice presented was really, motivated by romance and relationships and stuff like that. Throughout, vampires are trying to find other vampires so that they can essentially live their lives in a way that has some companionship. That's the whole Louis Lestat storyline. I thought Interview with the Vampire was a pretty terrible movie. I think the performances across the board by good actors. Tom Cruise is a good actor. Brad Pitt's a good actor. Christian
Banderas
Slater
is a good actor.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really fault Kirsten Dunst for her performance, but I mean, Stephen Ray, yeah,
there's a lot. There's a lot of people in that movie.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that story was really, really interesting. And they were going for star power instead of like actual storyline. Vampire Lestat is a movie that has been rumored to be made for the last, 20 years or so. And it's never really seen the light of day, even though it's a super compelling story. Queen of the Damned, this questioner is correct. It's really interesting. It's this vampire that's tired of doing, this ruling thing and wants to come out and be, hot shit. She's impervious to the sun, I think. So that's really interesting, and I think you could explore that, and you can make it,
She's
sexy.
a daywalker.
She's a daywalker, yes.
A daywalker.
All of their strengths, none of their weaknesses. Okay, I like this question. Guten Tag. All right. I just listened to last week's episode, and I have to agree that the reveal in Ender's Game is great. I didn't realize that reveal, by the way, until I watched it for the Sins purposes. That is an awesome reveal.
Yeah. That was one of my favorite all-time reading experiences was Ender's Game.
I bet that was fun as hell.
Because I had never heard of it at the time that the book was thrust in front of me, and then I read it and I was like, oh, holy shit.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's genius. On that note, I was wondering what are some of your favorite big reveals from underrated movies. I think that's a two-part question that kind of interact. So big reveals, underrated movies. What do you think?
All right. So in Rules of Attraction, there is a mystery for Sean Bateman. Actually, he doesn't think it's a mystery.
Right.
That there's this girl who's sending him all this stuff in his mailbox and everything. He thinks it's the Shannon Sossman character the whole time. And so every way that he interacts with her informs that. He thinks that she's so totally into him and all this other type of stuff. And I think she kind of is, but not to the point that the letters are saying.
Yeah, she's got her own shit going on.
By the end of the movie, though, you find out that there has been this other girl the entire time that has been sending this stuff. Now, she kills herself, which is, not cool or anything like that. But when they make the reveal that she's been the woman the whole time, the movie goes back and shows you all the instances where she's in the background
Yeah.
of the movie.
Yeah.
And that movie's made so that could be another one of those like recommend. It might be a Wreck of Warren almost, but like because it's not like for everybody.
Yeah. It
But
doesn't leave you with a good feeling.
it's one of those Bret Easton Ellis type things. Is it that and American Psycho or like, but that reveal in that is just tremendously satisfying because of the way they do it. It's something that I actually thought they were going to emulate in Pitch Perfect 3 because there was a whole thing with Anna Camp's dad in the movie where she's like, oh, I wish my dad could see me sing and all that. And by the end of it, he's there. He's at her last performance or whatever. Good feel good moment. But I thought because he was like some secret agent or something like that, they were going to go back and show that he had been at all the shows. And I thought that would have been amazing. And it would have been, it would have ripped off Rules of Attraction, but it would have been awesome.
Yeah. It's a good call.
I love that Rules of Attraction. That last scene though will really make you. The first scene really and the last scene, which I think are the same party. It doesn't make you feel good about yourself, but God, it's so compelling.
I have two I don't really think count because I suck. The first thing I thought of was Terminator 3 because
that's a good one.
Claire Danes' dad, the military guy, basically tells them how to get to this place where they can use the computer to shut down the machines, basically. Skynet. And so they go with Arnold. Of course, the evil Terminator follows them. Arnold has to stay outside and fight her and die. And then they make it into this thing and they get down there and they slowly realize that all this equipment is like from the 1950s and there's no computer here to shut down Skynet. And he just was trying to protect his daughter as best he could and get her to a bunker. And John realizes this is how my destiny begins. Everything I've been told by my mother for years starts right now. And he gets on the radio after the nuclear attack and starts talking to whoever the other survivors are. It's one of the best endings to a completely average movie.
Wow, this is a great reveal because the first two movies, the whole thing is about we're going to take down Skynet.
Yeah.
We got to stop this before it starts or whatever. And so that's what you think this is going to be, is that they're finally going to find a way to just destroy Skynet and everything. And then they're like, nope, this is, there's no way to stop Skynet. Basically,
Nope.
The whole thing, the Terminator 3 is all basically about, this whole thing about fate and everything like that has come to roost. You can't stop Skynet.
Yep.
There's always going to be a guy out there who's trying to make Skynet.
Yep.
And so like, this whole reveal that, this is his headquarters now. This is how he becomes John Connor.
Yeah.
I really liked it too. I really like that ending too. It's exactly right. It is an average movie, but it has that great ending.
Yeah. And I just it had so much promise, but instead in the next movie we flash forward and he's become Christian Bale and Claire Danes has become Bryce Dallas Howard.
Stands to reason.
I'm done.
Did you have another one?
I'm not going to say it because you guys seem to like that one. All right. I'm not going to risk looking stupid.
I think this is firmly underrated. Shutter Island.
Yeah.
It's underrated as a movie itself, and it's definitely underrated as a Scorsese movie. It seems like it's never mentioned in like even the top half of his filmography.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to crack that though.
It is. I really like this movie. It's based on a great book, and it is a big old mindfuck.
Dennis Lehane, right?
It's a big old mindfuck. It's I'm not going to get into the actual reveal because if you haven't seen this, you should watch it, and you should watch it unspoiled if you can. But things take a severe turn at the end of this movie, and the way that they do it, I think, is really genius because, Ben Kingsley's pumping the brakes essentially and like saying, this is how we have to do this for this to work. And then it introduces the true nature of a lot of the colleagues that have been around the island. And it's just really, it almost gave me chills because it puts it together so expertly and like everything makes sense and all the reactions that Leo's having at the end, they all make sense. Ben Kingsley's character makes sense. Like it wraps up neatly. And the way that it ends is pretty outstanding.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a surprise ending, but it makes sense and it's satisfying, just like your Rules of Attraction thing. So, and they do this similar thing where they kind of replay the footage and say, "Here's what happened. Here's what happened." So I think that's both an underrated movie and a really cool ending.
Yeah, definitely.
Very cool.
A reveal, if you will.
It is a good reveal. Yes, and a creepy movie.
Let's do one more.
All right.
Similar to Dunkirk and Darkest Hour, what two movies with different tones but similar subject matter would make a good double feature? Love these.
Okay, so I did not get different tones in my answer here. I mean, that was a really tough thing for me to try to come down with, because I'm sure if I gave it like days of thought or whatever, that I could probably come up with, movies that have different tones and would be great double feature, especially stuff that's, they got basically the same story. They complement each other in a way. Like that's, The Darkest Hour and Dunkirk are just essentially that same time in history.
Mm-hmm.
So you could do a lot of World War II movies this way and whatever. But I ended up coming up with This is Spinal Tap and Fear of a Black Hat.
Nice. Nice.
Would be a great double feature to watch those two back to back. They're very similar in a way, but they're different too. And I think the humor in Fear of a Black Hat is a little bit different from This is Spinal Tap is what would you say? Most of it's not one-liners and everything. Well, what would you say?
I don't know.
It's the situation.
It's the situation and the deadpan.
Yeah.
And just the way that they're committed to and it's so silly, but they treat it so seriously.
Right.
Like everything that, the reaction to 11, like this goes to,
right.
I don't understand what problem you have with this.
Both of them are perfect for their time. This is Spinal Tap is really getting to this, this rock and roll bands and like the stuff that is so hits so close to home that some rock bands were like, oh my God, this is like a documentary almost. Yeah. Not like a mockumentary, but a real documentary. This is stuff that actually happens. That's what, but I feel like those two would be good companion pieces. The other one that I've always thought, and these are all, I guess in some way have varying degrees of tone or different tones from each other, but it would be interesting, I think, to watch Quiz Show, JFK, and All the President's Men back to back. The reason for this is all three of those movies have something at the center of it that an investigator has to go in and try to find out the truth to. Nobody wants to talk, and they have to find that lucky break somewhere to finally break the case and everything. Almost every single one of all three of these movies have scenes where an investigator goes to a door. They say, I'm here to talk about this, and they get the door shut in their face.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So every one of them has that. They're all real. All three of those movies are great. I'm a little bit more down on JFK these days just because of my world getting shattered on that. Just as a technical achievement, JFK is a great movie to watch, and just watching how a mystery gets unraveled and everything is real fun.
That's a long marathon right there.
It is.
Those are three long.
Quiz Show is average length, and then
All the President's Men, I guess, isn't that long.
And yeah, JFK is the one that will spend your afternoon basically. But I've always thought, and that's right. That's in chronological order, by the way. Quiz Show in the 50s, JFK 60s and 70s. And then All the President's Men is in the 70s.
Oh, nice.
And you'll I think that's I've always thought that would be cool. I've never done it, but I would like to at some point.
They're chronological, and aren't they in reverse order they were made?
That's right.
Awesome.
That's right.
I totally misread this question and thought that based on last week's podcast joke I made, that the question asker was asking us to pick two different tone movies that could be cut together and presented as one.
All right.
So take my answers with that understanding.
Well, that makes sense too. I think that works.
I actually thought about JFK too. I thought if you cut together JFK and Jackie, you might get a very interesting perspective on just how different her days after the assassination were compared to the rest of the country's few days after the assassination. The other one I thought of was Lincoln. One thing Lincoln doesn't give you a whole lot of is any of the war, because it's much more focused on Lincoln the person and the politics behind passing this bill. So if you took something like Gettysburg, that shows you plenty of battlefield stuff and chain of command and battles
Right.
and whatnot, and you intercut that with what's going on back in Washington, you might get a little more insight into the urgency Lincoln feels to pass this bill because people are dying out here constantly. So those were the two I thought of. But again, I misunderstood the question.
No, I think that works
good.
perfectly
Yeah.
well. And in fact, I actually was thinking along those lines when I first started it. The problem is I didn't want to come up with the same thing over and over again. I feel like you could do all the World War II movies and do it this way.
Yep.
You could come up with an entire patchwork of the World War II, the entire theater of World War II, by splicing all the movies together. Imagine what kind of length movie that would be.
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, that's probably the most filmed about war there has ever been.
Yeah.
Is World War II.
Yep.
You go through, the European theater, the Asian theater, the African theater.
Yeah.
There's like a million different things that you could go through on that. And I was thinking that for a while, and I bet I could come up with a couple, but I just couldn't in the time that we were, going through the questions and everything. I love that exercise, though, trying to come up with something we could splice together.
Yeah, totally. In fact, I even wrote in my responses, I love this question.
Yeah. I have one, a cheat one, and then I'm going to do a real one. But The Shining and Room 237 would be interesting. Now, it's cheating a bit because Room 237 uses a lot of The Shining footage in it. So you're kind of watching the same thing over and over. Tonally, they are very, very different, obviously.
Yeah.
One is exploring the other. Room 237 is actually available on Mubi right now if you want to watch it. It's pretty much the most insane theories that educated fans have about The Shining and Kubrick's involvement.
They're fantastic. They're crazy people, but man, those theories are just on the edge of being like, he might have something here. He probably doesn't, but it's something he's got.
So my other answer is, so Boogie Nights is essentially a happy ending, no pun intended.
Yep.
It has a happy ending. There's a dive for Dirk Diggler and everything, but like it's weird to say that a happy ending is rejoining a porn shoot.
Yeah.
But everybody's
your
happy.
dick.
Yeah, everybody's
I'm
happy.
a star.
I'm a big, bright, shining star. So it's essentially a happy movie. It ends on a nice note and everything. So you get good vibes from that. Then, if you watched a true story about pornography in the 70s and 80s, you can watch Wonderland. Wonderland came out in 2003 with Val Kilmer playing
That's
John
Hard
John
to
Holmes.
watch, man. It's a hard watch.
It really is, and it's fascinating. Terrible ratings, but I actually thought it was a good movie. I couldn't say I enjoyed it because there's a lot of addictive behavior, drug use, and then criminal stuff later on, but it would kind of give you a realistic portrait of a porn star in that era after you've seen this kind of fantastical and tied up with a nice ribbon.
It's almost Boogie Nights is almost a porn fairy tale.
Yeah, it really is.
I don't know. I don't want to take away from your joke there, but I do not want to live that fairy tale. You could also throw in Lovelace in there too. And Deciphered one, which you could cut 3 movies together into that. So are we done?
So we'll end on porno.
We'll end on porn.
That's the best.
That's
way
what
to
you
end.
guys are going to do anyway, right? After you're done listening.
You switch over. You may be watching porn while you're listening to this.
It might be, or inspired to by listening to us. When one can only hope. That'll do it for this week. Keep going to SinCast presented by Cinemasins Facebook page. Keep going to our Cinemasins Twitter. Keep going to SoundCloud. Keep going to our emails. Keep going to Reddit. Keep going to we're in a lot of places.
Spread the word and subscribe on iTunes, please, if you have the inclination.
Yes.
Yes.
Sometimes I think I have something to say, and then I realize I don't. Sorry.
Yeah. But that'll do it for this week. It's Chris Atkins and Jeremy Scott and Barrett Sher. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Comment on our episodes on our SoundCloud page. Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. And be sure to visit cinemasins.com.
How come those women? Never mind.
if we weren't mentioning it on our pod, we weren't. I'm sorry, I can't.
Do you
talk
want me to read it?
I got it. But yeah, no, I think that would be really, really, really good.
Yeah.
No. All right.
My favorite section is how to improve your word power. That section is really, really, really good.
I go into a cold sweat anytime like audio issues happen because of the one where we lost it, and then the one with Modern Horrors. They're just like some of the most. And then getting this to work in the studio in the first place was fucking agonizing. God damn.
Magnets, how do they work?
Well, there's so many things that can go wrong in any of this, from the interface to the mixer to the mics to the content is easy because we have you guys.
It really is crazy how much goes into sound, by the way. That same goes for in movie theaters when sound is. There's so many different things that make the sound good in an auditorium.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not only your amplifiers and all that, but inside the amplifiers there's stuff like preamps and all this other nonsense that could go wrong and could cause the sound to be.
It's all the nodes and modules.
Yeah. And then so like it goes from the amps to a preamp and to this processor, and this processor goes out to the speakers.
That's in the booth?
Yeah, man. There's a lot of shit goes on.
They've got preamps in the
inside amplifiers a lot of times.
Really?
Yeah. Now they may not have them anymore, but yeah, I would always listen to my technician talk about certain things with sound because I was always obsessed with it, and I would wonder why, if you're a technician here and you're a technician at this other theater that I go to that has way better sound than us, then what's the issue here? and so a lot of times it has to do with just the equipment that we use as opposed to the equipment that they use. And it's like all the different little matrices and bullshit that they have to go through to get the sound just right and everything. And like, that was the thing about Hollywood 27 is like I was always disappointed in the sound. Always. Like the center channel never seemed strong enough to me.
Uh-huh.
Even though like so technician would be told when you run all your tests and everything, the decibels have to be between, I think, 75 and 85 or something like that. And so like they would get it, they'd get it to that 81, 82 or whatever when they balance everything out and do the A chain and B chain and all this other nonsense that I never really understood. Mm-hmm. The standards were always too loud, just too loud. They would
what do you mean
all
standards?
The standard for 82 decibels.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Too loud. You. And like so, like you would get all your sound correct and everything, and so play the first movie that plays in there, and instantly you got somebody coming out saying it's too loud, and you have to turn it down, and it's no longer the standard that they want anymore. You see the stuff that they come in. The director note, which, who knows if the director's actually, it's like the director note is always like, be sure to have this between, 82 and 85 decibels or whatever. And you're like, okay. And so you try to do that. And man, the trailers are always super loud, but like, even if you were to turn it down and then turn it back up, it's too loud. So I never understood that standard. Maybe there was something in their perfect environments that they could get that sound just right. Mm-hmm. And they expect all the theaters across the world to have the exact same.
Which is crazy because you get varying size even within one theater.
Varying size, varying equipment, there's
people in there,
obviously.
People
in there. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that just goes into that. And it's always too loud. But then you turn it down and then certain things about it would be too low. And that's like I said, I just always was just disappointed with our sound. Just like sometimes that center channel where all the dialogue's coming out of just doesn't resonate.
They also, at least our experience is mostly with Regal. There's a little bit of out of touchness there with the home office in terms of how different each theater is. And because I remember when I went over there for manager training for a week, they tried telling us that the the goal for the average concession order time was like something like 12 seconds. And I was like, you can't even fill a goddamn Coke in 12 seconds. Like I went off. I was like, this is insanity. Like you've lost touch with how concessions work.
Were they putting people who didn't go to concessions into that average?
Exactly. They were rolling in the average from all the people who skipped the line.
I mean, yeah. Even if there's like one person that comes up and says, "I want a candy," there's no 12 seconds involved there.
No, you can't ring it up, take the money, and give them a candy. In 12 seconds. You can barely do it in 60.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was one of the first times I realized how out of touch they were at the home office with what they were asking us to do out of the field.
Seconds, Jesus.
So much nonsense.
Is it?
I always had the theory, too, about trailers, that trailers weren't necessarily mixed louder, although I think there was a time that they did for sure make trailers louder on purpose. But then they passed some sort of law or rule or whatever that said trailers had to be a normal mix or whatever. But even then they were still too loud. And I always had the feeling that the reason why trailers always seemed too loud is because they were using every speaker. Like they had, not only is there people talking and shouting,
right.
There's music, there's sound effects, there's a lot of things that you don't hear in a barrage of 2.5 minutes that you do in a regular movie.
Right.
And, obviously there's points in movies, if you're watching a Transformer, say, or whatever, there's going to be, 5 to 10 minutes of that stuff. And it's going to sound super loud for all that time. The trailers do that. They're just constant throughout there, like music and, in a world and all
overlapping
that.
dialogue and stuff like that.
So there's a lot of stuff going on with trailers that I think it's not necessarily that they are louder. They've mixed them louder. It's just that they have more stuff going on all at once.
It could be. I know commercials are louder than regular. I mean, you'll have like a regular reasonable volume on and like get up to get a sandwich or something like that, and the commercial will be on and be like,
and I wonder the reason for that is you have, so like somebody, a channel like NBC or whatever is going to mix their TV shows a certain volume and everything, and they got it every way they want it. Then they get all these ads from all these different other places in the country, in the world, and everything, and then they try to plug those in, and it's super loud because they don't have everything. Nobody's got a standard. It doesn't look like.
Yeah.
So
I always thought it was just to get your attention.
It could be. It still could be that, though.
Because even if you're annoyed, you're like, God damn it, that car salesman person, I want to go buy a car.
My wife will mute the TV when commercials come on.
Uh-huh.
It drives me crazy because the silence is worse to me than the loud commercials.
Yeah.
I'd rather have the background noise of the commercials. But yeah, she's so annoyed with volume of commercials, she'll just turn them off. She'll just mute the whole thing.
I don't blame her.
Yep. You just ran into your what?
My microphone. I turned my head, my face just went straight.
That's
God
all right.
damn it.
These new mics are bigger. We have to muscle memory.
That's
is
right.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
It's bulbous.
Bulbous.
Yep.
Bulbous with its nodes.
Shoot
and
him in his
modules.
bulbous ass.